You're watching Swipe. Coming up on this week's show, Chris sits down with the man dubbed the Steven Spielberg of gaming. What animal shot this footage? And Alicia joins the Pokemon Go craze, because let's face it, who hasn't? Hello and welcome to Swipe. If you're a gamer, you will have heard of Hideo Kojima. If you're not a gamer, he's the man behind one of gaming's biggest franchises, Metal Gear. He came to the UK this week and Chris managed to get an interview with him to find out what makes him tick.
Hideo Kojima is described by some as the Steven Spielberg of gaming.
No more bullets!
His Metal Gear series is critically and commercially acclaimed, selling nearly 50 million copies worldwide. The games are known for their elaborate plots, complex characters, and focus on the supernatural.
I don't think of my games as dark. I'm trying to make them more realistic. When I started making games 30 years ago, they were far from realistic. Characters had no background. There was no real story to them. So I made it my mission to depict these elements of the story. I didn't want my characters to be lines of code. I wanted them to be people, living, organic things. I also wanted to convey the struggles that these characters have been through, some of the more difficult background they have had. So I see this not as adding dark elements to the game, but rather adding depth.
Last year, Kojima left the games developer Konami, where he'd been since the 80s, to set up his own studio.
I'm back!
And at E3, he teased the game he's currently working on, Death Stranding. It's a collaboration with actor Norman Reedus. Film and television have had a big influence on Kojima's career.
I love film, but there are two big reasons I watch movies to help me. One is that they show me things I don't know about, people, worlds and eras that spark my creativity to make games. The other reason would be the energy. Making games is a long process. It can be very difficult at times, with a lot of struggles. If I'm going through a difficult patch and I watch a great movie, it reminds me that there are so many creative people out there all over the world pushing hard to accomplish great things. That really motivates me to keep going. So I guess these are the two reasons why I make sure I watch movies every day.
And of course, video games themselves are an important influence too. What would you say is your favourite game of all time?
That's a question that I get often, but I guess the one that influenced me the most, the one I played before joining this industry, was Super Mario Bros. It's a simple game. All you can do is jump and run. You have two buttons, and it's a side-scroller, and that's it. There's nothing more to it. But just by adding the element of having time when you use those actions, the game gains so much depth. It's the game that I played the most in my life. I played hundreds of hours of it, and it's the one that made me realise the possibilities that gaming has. I don't think I've seen another that surpasses that.
With the rise of mobile gaming, titles like Pokemon Go, for example, do you think that's changing the way people engage with games? Do you think it means that less people are going to play the sort of long, immersive games with really big narratives that you're famous for?
I once made a game in the past called Boktai. It was for Game Boy Advance. It had a UV sensor, and the way this game worked was that you had to use real-life solar power to defeat vampires in the game. The interaction with the real world, in a way, is kind of like the way Pokemon Go works. It's important to look at how you can use new technology to expand your options, but I don't think this kind of thing is a replacement. I don't think if something new comes along, you say, OK, this is the new thing, and it's the only thing we do. On the contrary, I think the more options we get, the wider variety of games we can see.
So what do you think about the current state of the UK games industry?
First off, British music is awesome. It's the best music in the world. British movies are also fantastic. When it comes to games, I never put much attention into where the game is from, but if I had to answer that question about a specific British company, I would have to say Media Molecule. They are really great. I feel like they have a completely different environment and philosophy and style of making games that's very different from any other place. What they're making right now, I don't even know if you could call it a game, but it's something I'm not able to imitate, the way they express what they're making. Something that I guess you could call original, you can't find anywhere else. There are many studios out there that are led by marketing, but for them it's very different.
What do you think the future will hold for virtual reality? Do you think it could have as much of an impact on the gaming industry as the jump from 2D to 3D did, for example?
Originally, I think when technology changed from 2D to 3D, it essentially stayed the same as movies and TV. You were always restricted to this frame, to this square frame. But now the frame is gone, so I think it will make an even bigger difference than the jump to 3D. And I don't think that this change will only be in games. Eventually, it will make it into changing our overall lifestyles. It might start in games, but soon it'll have a deep penetration in society. That is when we will realise the true value of the technology.
It's impossible to know how gaming technology will evolve in the years to come. But if anyone has a good idea, it's the man who's been at the forefront of all its changes so far. Chris Creegan, Sky News.
Stay with us. Still to come, we've got the mobile game everyone's going on about. But before then, here's a roundup of some of this week's tech news. Forget Google Street View, take a look at Sheep View 360. Small handheld 360-degree cameras have been attached to sheep in the Faroe Islands to help map out the landscape. It's after locals said Google won't send its own camera cars there. The sheep, who apparently outnumber people in the Faroe Islands, graze around as normal while the cameras take images that the tourist board then uploads to Google Street View. Pokemon Go arrived in the UK this week after proving a massive hit in the States, but it's not without controversy. The mobile game has players wandering around in real life while capturing virtual monsters in locations around them. Before the UK release, some reports from America suggested criminals were using the game to lead players to remote areas to rob them. There's more on Pokemon Go in our games review. Who knew wild coral like a good smooch? A new underwater microscope camera has captured what researchers think is coral exchanging materials while embracing. The advanced camera that films high-resolution millimetre-scale footage also managed to capture coral turf wars and the first stages of algae taking over bleached reefs. Now it's time for our regular game slot, and taking us through the titles this week is Alicia.
So you may have noticed, wandering around the streets, a lot of people staring at their phones slightly more than normal, and other people staring wistfully at them as they stare at their phones. That's because there's a game called Pokemon Go that's out. It's the dream game where it uses augmented reality to turn you into an actual Pokemon trainer. So you can run around your town staring at your phone, and if you lift up the camera, Pokemon will appear in front of you, and you can, just by using the touchscreen, flick little Pokeballs at them and catch them. Suddenly, people are running around their neighbourhoods, it's gaming on the go, a lot of people joking that they're suddenly moving around outside their house. The app actually works by using your GPS. So there are different kind of settlements and areas that the app picks up on. If you're near a park, then a lot of grass-type Pokemon will appear. If you're near a river or the sea, a lot of water-type Pokemon will appear. And it takes certain landmarks, so say your local pub or a station on the corner, and it turns them into kind of poker points where you can visit them and get certain items. And there are also gyms. So if you beat the Pokemon that sat in your local gym, you become basically the gym leader for your town and your area. So there's a lot of competitive play. Next up is Inside, and it's kind of the successor. It's from the same studio as the guys who made a game called Limbo. It's the brand new game where, once again, you're playing a little boy who he wakes up in a wilderness. Everything's trying to kill him. But unlike Limbo, where the main antagonist was a giant spider, so there was lots of fantasy elements, this time it's very gritty, it's very real. The people who are trying to kill you are men in masks in this kind of dystopian horror world where the threat is a lot more tangible. It's a side-scrolling platformer, so you only move from left to right the whole time across the screen. And there's only 2 buttons, so you basically press either to jump or to grab onto things. But that simplicity belies a really emotional, complex narrative. So Monster Hunter Generations is a vast action RPG where you run around this kind of adventure world where monsters roam free. And like any good hunter-gatherer, you have to go out into the wilderness, kill the most powerful monsters you can, and use their skin to get better. And there's been a few changes since the rest of kind of like the series that's come before it. So now you've got different classes of hunters that you can kind of be. There's 4 different supercharged hunter abilities that you can whack out in battle. So if you're battling a particularly tough monster, you can unleash a devastating wave of damage, or you can heal your teammates, because you can either play this single player on your Nintendo DS, or you can team up with 4 other people and go around and take out as many monsters as you can.
That's it for this week. Take a good look at Sky News on mobile, tablet, catch up Sky Q and Snapchat for all the latest tech stories throughout the week, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.